Today on Roll Credits, we're diving into Sentimental Value, a film about family, memory, and the emotional weight people leave behind.
And what a heavy weight it is.
Oh, absolutely. But before we really get into it, imagine a movie so emotionally devastating, but also undeniably sharp and funny, that a famously tough festival audience just stands up and claps for over 15 straight minutes.
Leaving the director and the cast literally in tears.
Yeah, and that's not an exaggeration. That is exactly what happened when Joachim Trier premiered this comedy drama and took home the Grand Prix at Cannes in 2025.
It was a massive moment.
It really was.
Yeah.
So our mission for this deep dive is to figure out how this film pulls off that impossible balancing act between raw emotion and sharp comedy.
Right, because the premise itself is, well, it feels like it's walking a tightrope.
Totally.
So the catalyst is Gustav Borg. He's this estranged, highly ego-driven film director who comes back to Oslo after the death of his ex-wife. And he's desperate for a comeback. So his grand idea is to cast his eldest daughter, Nora, who's a stage actress, as the lead in his new film.
Which, obviously, she says no to.
Exactly. And when she refuses, Gustav doesn't, sit down and reflect on why she might not want to work with him.
Because why would he?
Right. Instead, he just pivots. He casts this young, eager American Hollywood star named Rachel Kemp to play the part that was explicitly written for Nora.
It's so messed up.
He basically tries to replace his own flesh and blood on a movie screen.
Let's unpack that for a second,
Yeah.
because just hearing that setup, an estranged father, a dead mother, a grieving family, you instinctively brace yourself for a bleak kitchen sink drama.
Oh, for sure.
Like those hyper-realistic movies where everyone just screams at each other in a dark, cramped room.
Yeah.
But it doesn't feel like that at all.
No, Trier deliberately subverts that expectation. It's fundamentally a comedy drama. And he leans into the industry humor just as hard as the grief.
Which gives you, permission to laugh at the sheer absurdity of these people.
Exactly. The humor is almost a survival mechanism for the audience. It keeps the emotional undercurrent from just completely drowning you, which actually lets the heavier themes land with so much more precision.
It really does.
Yeah.
I mean, think about Gustav's reaction to Nora turning him down. It's the equivalent of turning down a promotion from a terrible boss, right?
Yeah.
Only to watch that boss immediately hire a glamorous outsider to sit at your desk, wear your clothes, and do the exact job they offered you right in front of your face.
That is the perfect analogy. It's a deeply toxic workplace dynamic, except, the workplace is your own family.
Right.
And Stellan Skarsgård's performance makes that toxicity so fascinating. Trier originally envisioned Gustav as just a quote, complicated asshole.
Right, which the Skarsgård can definitely play.
He can, but he brought this total lack of vanity to it. Most seasoned actors naturally want to protect their image, right? They want to look somewhat dignified.
Sure, yeah.
But Skarsgård completely stripped that away. He even filmed a full nude scene that got cut from the final edit just to physically manifest the frailty of this aging, difficult man.
Oh, wow. I didn't know they cut a nude scene. But I did read an interview where Skarsgård admitted his initial approach to playing a director was mostly about getting revenge.
Yes.
He's worked with demanding filmmakers for 6 decades, so he just wanted to mercilessly mock them.
Which is hilarious, but his final performance feels way more empathetic than just a caricature,
Definitely.
And that empathy comes from realizing that Gustav's controlling nature isn't really malice, it's this profound limitation.
He just literally doesn't know how else to be.
Exactly. He
Yeah.
is entirely incapable of communicating with the people he loves outside the controlled framework of his art. He can't just have a normal conversation. He needs a script.
Which, oh my gosh, brings up this incredible piece of behind-the-scenes irony. It makes the casting of the film a massive real-world meta-joke.
Oh, the Renate Reinsve thing?
Yes. So Nora, the daughter who refuses the role, is played by Renate Reinsve. And in the story, she gets replaced by this shiny American star played by Elle Fanning.
Right.
But in real life, while they were putting this film together, Reinsve actually dropped out of another major upcoming movie called Weapons. And who did the studio replace her with?
Julia Garner.
An American actor. The universe literally aligned to mirror her character's exact arc. It's great.
Perfect. It just supercharges the Hollywood satire running through the whole thing. Oh. But returning to the fiction itself, Gustav's inability to communicate takes a very physical form in the movie.
What do you mean the script?
Yes, the screenplay he brings into the house. Not the script of the film we are watching, but Gustav's massive, unread screenplay just sitting on the family's kitchen table.
That giant stack of paper is practically a main character.
It really is.
It just sits there looming over every single interaction.
It acts as a comedic antagonist. A prop like that does so much heavy lifting. Gustav desperately wants his daughters to read it because, well, that is the only way he knows how to explain himself.
Right, the physical weight of those pages is like all the apologies he can't verbalize.
Exactly. And every time a character just walks past it and ignores it, you feel the weight of their refusal to engage with him.
Yeah, but having a massive script sitting between people is one thing.
Yeah.
We also need to talk about the container they are trapped inside,
The house.
the Borg family home.
Yeah.
Because once you get past the messy family politics, you realize they are stuck together in this incredibly specific physical space that's just absorbing all this tension.
And what a space it is. The primary location is a historic villa in Oslo's Frogner district, built in the dragon style, or Dragestil.
It's gorgeous, but so imposing.
Very imposing. And the film introduces the psychological weight of this house early on. We hear a voiceover of a childhood essay Nora wrote, describing the house as a living entity.
Yeah, she says the windows are the house's eyes.
Right. Quietly absorbing a century of the family's joy and trauma.
But here's where I struggle with that concept.
Yeah.
How do you visually convey that a house is full of ghosts and memories without accidentally making like a literal haunted house horror movie?
That's the real challenge.
Because watching it, you feel the weight of the past in every room, but it's not like doors are mysteriously slamming shut, you know?
No, it requires an incredibly delicate touch from the director of photography, Casper Tuxen. The first major decision was shooting on 35mm and 16mm Kodak analog film.
Which is so rare now.
It is. In an era of ultra-crisp digital cinema, shooting on film creates this tactile texture. The slight grain mimics the imperfection of memory itself.
That makes a lot of sense.
But the true technical marvel was how they blended that old-school intimacy with cutting-edge realism.
Because the house we see on screen is actually a hybrid, right? They didn't shoot everything in that historic villa.
No, they didn't. They shot the first-floor scenes and the exteriors on location in Oslo. But to get the absolute emotional control they needed for the intimate moments, the second-floor bedrooms were meticulously rebuilt on a soundstage at Gateway Studios.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and outside the windows of those sets, they didn't use traditional green screens. They used massive LED virtual production walls.
Wait, what does that actually achieve, practically speaking? Like, why go through the trouble of building a virtual world outside a fake window?
Because it allows them to seamlessly show the passage of time without ever moving the camera or breaking the actor's emotional space.
Oh,
They could project decades of seasonal changes, like a bright summer sun shifting into a harsh winter snow in real time right outside the bedroom windows.
so the actors can actually see the snow falling while they perform.
Exactly, rather than staring at a blank green wall, the environment decays and changes alongside the character's internal states.
That is such a brilliant way to anchor the actors. And speaking of the camera, there are some very specific visual choices that make the house feel oppressive.
Oh, definitely.
I notice we constantly see the characters framed through doorways or standing at the far end of these long, dark hallways.
Yeah, Tuxen and Trier were heavily influenced by Yasujiro Ozu, the legendary Japanese filmmaker.
Oh, the tatami shots.
Exactly. They frequently utilize these tatami shots. And just to break that down for you listening, a tatami shot involves placing the camera low to the ground, roughly at the eye level of someone kneeling on a tatami mat and keeping it completely static.
And how does dropping the camera a few feet alter the psychology of the scene?
Well, when you lower a static camera and shoot through doorways, the architecture of the house suddenly looms over the characters. The door frames act like boxes.
Oh, compartmentalizing everyone.
Right. Even when Gustav and Nora are under the exact same roof, the wooden frames of the house stand between them like physical barriers. It visually reinforces their emotional distance without anyone saying a word.
Wow. And, we absolutely cannot skip over the most haunting piece of trivia regarding this location.
The previous film connection.
Yes. The filmmakers intentionally reused the exact same house and the exact same bedroom from Trier's acclaimed earlier film, Oslo, August 31st.
Which is wild.
Anyone who has seen that film knows it ends with a character committing suicide in that very room. By bringing his new characters into that specific space, Trier is layering actual cinematic grief into this fictional family's home.
It charges the space with this undeniable, almost subconscious gravity. You feel the melancholic history of the room even if you don't know why.
Right.
And that feeling of an inescapable past is crucial because the Borg family is dealing with their own dark history. The house is a container for generational trauma stemming from World War II.
Okay, let me push back a little here, though. Generational trauma has become a massive buzzword in media right now.
It really has.
It feels like every other prestige drama slaps a trauma label on its characters to sound deep. How does Sentimental Value handle this in a way that feels earned, rather than just checking a thematic box?
That is a highly valid critique. A lot of films do use trauma as a cheap plot device, but Trier earns it through rigorous restraint.
Okay, how so?
Well, consider the sequence with the younger sister Agnes, played by Inga Ibsdottir Lillias. She goes to the National Archive to research her grandmother, who was a resistance fighter tortured at the Greenie concentration camp.
Right.
A lesser film would cut to a flashy, horrific visual flashback of the torture to force a reaction from you.
Oh, they'd absolutely show us the brutality directly.
Exactly what Trier refuses to do. Instead, the camera stays in this quiet, sterile reading room. We just watch Agnes reading the dry, bureaucratic reports of her grandmother's suffering.
The devastation plays out entirely on her face.
Yes, we are watching the weight of history crush her in real time.
And the audio in that scene is what completely destroyed me. There is a voiceover reading the reports as she goes through them, and the texture of that voice, it literally makes the hairs on your arms stand up.
The audio texture is everything there. That voice belongs to a 91-year-old Norwegian actress named Bente Bursum,
Oh.
and the real-world connection here is staggering. Bursum's own mother was actually a member of the World War II resistance.
No way.
Yes. Furthermore, Bursum starred in the debut film of Joachim Trier's grandfather, Eric Lucien, who was also a resistance member.
I had no idea the roots went that deep.
This is why it doesn't feel like a buzzword. It's an act of historical reclamation. Having a voice shaped by 91 years of life, connected by actual bloodlines to the resistance, reading those clinical reports, it gives the film an absolute authority of grief.
You really can't fake that kind of resonance with sound effects.
You can't.
It entirely recontextualizes how the movie operates moment to moment. It's the ultimate execution of show, don't tell.
It really is. Like, there's this tiny blink-and-you-miss-it moment earlier in the film. Nora is in the kitchen, and she silently peels off a sticker from the counter that says, "Turn off the hot plate," and she just throws it in the trash. That's it. That is the entire action.
And yet, that single prop tells an entire tragic story.
Yes. You don't need a tearful monologue about how her mother suffered from dementia or how Nora spent years terrified the house would burn down.
Right, the simple physical act of peeling off a piece of tape releases all those years of caretaking anxiety.
It's a masterclass in using everyday objects to communicate loss.
But achieving that level of quiet storytelling requires a very specific environment on set. You can't just yell action and expect actors to organically find those micro moments.
So how did they do it?
Trier utilizes a highly unusual rehearsal method. He spends an enormous amount of time rehearsing with the cast, encouraging them to completely improvise within the emotional boundaries of the scene.
Okay.
And then he actually rewrites the script based on what the actors discovered during those improvisations. Oh, so the script adapts to the actors, rather than forcing the actors to adapt to the script.
Precisely. By the time the camera is actually rolling, burning through that expensive 35mm film, the actors know the emotional architecture so intimately that they feel completely safe.
Which lets them be vulnerable.
Right. That safety allows them to lose control and to find those tiny, authentic gestures, like peeling the sticker off the counter.
That deep understanding of the text leads to what the cast described as the most terrifying day on set, the pivotal monologue scene.
Oh, that scene is incredible.
This blew my mind structurally. Gustav has written this highly emotional monologue for his new movie. First, we see Rachel, the young Hollywood star, played by Elle Fanning, perform it.
Yeah.
And because she's ambitious and young, she performs this tragic text with this giddy, almost glowing excitement. She's essentially thinking, look at me, I'm nailing this scene.
Exactly.
But later, Nora and Agnes are lying in bed, and they read the exact same monologue from the script.
Oh, yeah.
And they completely break down sobbing.
It's a brilliant exploration of subjective interpretation. The words on the page are identical.
It's like handing two different musicians the exact same piece of sheet music. One musician looks at the notes and plays it like a triumphant pop anthem, right?
Right.
And the other musician plays the exact same notes, but turns it into a heartbreaking acoustic ballad. The text hasn't changed, but the lived history of the person interpreting it changes the art completely.
That is a perfect way to put it. And since we are on the topic of music and interpretation, the film's actual score operates on a similarly fascinating level.
Oh, Hani Irani's score.
Yes, she created a deeply ethereal, melancholic, sonic landscape. But what makes her approach so unusual is that she composed the music purely by reading the script.
Wait, really?
Yeah, she refused to look at a single frame of the edited film while she was writing the score.
Why would a composer do that? Doesn't the music need to match the action on screen?
Not if you want the music to access the subconscious of the film.
Oh, I see.
By divorcing herself from the immediate visual action, like who is walking where or how a specific tear falls, Ronnie tapped directly into the underlying emotional current of the story.
So the score speaks directly to the characters' souls.
Exactly. It transcends the physical reality of the scenes.
But the movie doesn't just rely on that melancholic score either. The needle drops. The placement of actual commercial songs are incredibly deliberate.
Yes, very specific choices.
The film bookends itself with two distinct tracks. It opens with Terry Callier's folk soul song Dancing Girl, and it closes with Lobby Siffer's Canuck Chase.
Both incredible songs.
They have such a rich, organic warmth to them. They act like a safety net, keeping the film from just freezing over in its own sadness.
Those musical choices anchor the film in a recognizable human reality, which, helps us zoom out and look at the broader cinematic tapestry Trier is weaving here.
Yeah.
Ultimately, Sentimental Value is a film about the purpose and really the cost of making art.
It is undeniably a love letter to cinema itself. You can feel the DNA of other great films running through it.
You certainly can. Thematically, it draws heavily from Ingmar Bergman's Wild Strawberries.
Oh, right. Another masterpiece about an aging, difficult man confronting his past ghosts.
Exactly. But Trier marries that contemplative, slower-paced European art house style with the grounded, highly communicative family dynamics of 1970s American cinema.
Oh, like Ordinary People.
Yes, Robert Redford's Ordinary People. That film treats the emotional struggles of a family with absolute unironic sincerity. Trier is blending those two distinct traditions.
And he maintains that grounded feeling in the technical choices, too, even when it would be easier to cheat.
Like the beach scene.
Yes. There's a sequence late in the film that takes place on the beach at the Deauville Film Festival at night. Normally, Hollywood movies shoot night scenes by blasting the area with a massive, fake, glowing blue light.
That classic Hollywood moonlight.
Exactly. But cinematographer Casper Tuxen completely rejected that.
He refused to artificially sweeten the moment. He used practical spotlights to mimic the actual boardwalk lights of the festival.
Which keeps it so grounded.
It keeps the characters visually anchored in reality, even as the emotional stakes are peaking. And that technical rigor culminates in the film's climax, which features a massive honor.
And for anyone not familiar with the jargon, an honor is a continuous, unbroken camera shot that lasts for an extended period, moving through a space without a single cut.
Right, and in modern filmmaking, a lot of owners are actually fake.
Yeah, they use hidden digital cuts when the camera pans past a dark wall or something.
Exactly. But Tuxen and his master key grip, Christian Scheib, executed this complex, sprawling camera dance around the house practically.
No digital tricks?
None. They used the traditional Pee-wee dolly, which is a heavy mechanical cart on wheels that the camera operator sits on,
Pushing hundreds of pounds of metal smoothly through a house.
hitting every mark perfectly alongside the actors. It requires incredibly muscular, disciplined filmmaking.
So we have this estranged family, a house steeped in historic and personal tragedy, and this deeply flawed father trying to control it all. Where does this complex web actually land? Like, what is the final takeaway?
The entire film builds toward an answer about why art matters.
Okay.
Throughout the story, we see these characters completely fail to communicate in the real world. Their social language is fundamentally broken.
Gustav literally cannot apologize to Nora over a cup of coffee.
Right. But the ultimate revelation is that Gustav's art, the screenplay, the film he is trying to make, becomes the only language capable of bridging that gap.
Because he can write what he can't say.
Yes. When Nora finally engages with his script, she realizes that through his writing, her father actually saw and understood her pain.
Which leads to the final breathtaking visual trick of the movie.
It's amazing. In the final scene, the camera pulls back from what we believe is the real historic house. But as the frame widens, we see the crew, the lights, the scaffolding.
It is a recreated studio set.
The artifice of filmmaking is laid bare. It reinforces a profound thesis of the real world and the real house hold too much pain to be resolved directly. But cinema itself acts as a safe, constructed laboratory for healing. In the artificial space of art, they can finally find a real way forward.
It is just brilliant storytelling. Imagine putting yourself in Nora's shoes for a moment. Consider the physical spaces from your own childhood. If your family home could be projected onto a movie screen, what hidden stories would the walls tell, and would you be brave enough to watch them play out? And that wraps our deep dive into sentimental value. If you enjoyed this episode, follow Roll Credits and share it with your fellow movie fans. And let us know what film we should cover next, old or new. We'll be back soon with more trivia, more movie magic, and maybe a few more unforgettable stories.